That
to
is
the
the
people.
key. When in doubt, ask one, two,
Exactly.
three, four. Somebody has to know, right?
And like you said, it's going to save you money, save your time, save your stress to just get help, especially if you're uncertain. We are back with Maggie, and we are going to now hear about her story of one deciding to go to school in Newfoundland. Okay, fine. Did she get help? Did she have her student visa rejected like me? My very first visa was rejected. Also, what was the immigration route now? So you went to school. What was the route towards permanent residency, especially since you went to Atlantic Canada? In my mind, I'm like, is Atlantic immigration program? Is that why you went to Atlantic Canada? No, we know that wasn't the case. If you don't know, you need to go watch the first episode and then come back here or watch it afterwards. So thank you again for being here. We are going to talk to Maggie about all those things that I just mentioned a while ago. You went to Newfoundland. You're trying to be a doctor. You change your mind.
Change my mind.
When you were embarking on the journey, the immigration journey to go there, you are in a different country, so you're not even in your home country. So, but you have to apply for visas, all that stuff. Did you get help, like from an immigration consultant? Like, walk us through like your immigration process, for of transitioning from another country that's not your home country to Atlantic Canada.
I will say I was very fortunate. I always say that my journey to going to Newfoundland and Labrador was not a mistake because of how it even happened. So when I found out about the school, this was during a time when universities come in, they're doing their talks, everything. I went to every single one of them, but the money was too high. These are the schools in Florida, California, wherever. And I was about to give up. I'm like, well, it looks like I'm just going to work and there's no going overseas to study. We're just going to have to figure it out some other way because these are out of my parents' budget for sure. For some reason, there was one more school. This was Memorial University who was coming. And my friend Jalen at the time, he's like, Maggie, what's the harm in we just go? If it's to be, it will be. If not, then at least you knew or you tried. I went, I heard the presentation. One of the persons who was there, who was working with the international student department, she was from Belize. So this is when I was in Belize. She was the very first Belizean student. And if I'm not mistaken, probably one of the first Black students that they had at that specific campus I went to. And so just listening to the presentation, hearing how they broke down, the different campuses and all of these things, but talking about programs and all of these things, I was like, you know what? I want to talk to her afterwards to have a real talk with her. Because, yes, I can hear what the other person is saying, but I want to hear from her because she's been there, done that. There must be a reason why she's still in Newfoundland because at the time she was living there. So I went to her, talked to her, got more information. I'm like, all right, cool. I think this is it. Went home. I made a PowerPoint presentation to present to my parents. I
love
laid
it.
out the plan. Yes, I was like, if this have to work or else, a dirt. So that was that was it for me. So I did a presentation and then my dad was like, okay, let's do it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, all right then. So when I spoke to her, she gave me her contact info. So at the time, our school had a partnership with that school. So we would waive the
Oh,
registration fee. And
okay.
they had an office that we could go to as well to drop off our registration form and everything like that and just ask more questions. So I was able to do that. I can't remember if she was still here in Belize at the time. So I got to talk to her. When I went to drop off my form, I got to ask her more questions. So when it was time to apply for the visa, I was able to ask her certain questions to kind of help me. And it wasn't as hard. I would say I know for certain countries it is a bit more difficult. I think the hardest thing sometimes is like that financial part of proving you
Right.
can maintain yourself. So after figuring out all of that, applied. I got to talk to the school as well, the admin office, ask my questions, things like that, and just really show my interest to get a successful like acceptance letter, because the acceptance letter is important for the visa.
Of course.
So
Of
all of
course.
that came through. They had a dinner that they did for all the students who got accepted or were considering to go there, and that's where I met other people, and we kind of made an agreement like, you know what, while we're there, since most of us are going to the same campus, because in Newfoundland there are two campuses, we made an agreement that we're going to look out for each other. We
Mm-hmm.
have to have each other's back.
That's good.
So from what I can remember about the process, it never really that stressful. I remembered I just fill out what I need to fill out. I believe the embassy was in Mexico, like we didn't have one in
Right.
Belize.
That's what I was wondering too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have a we only have a US embassy in Belize, so that was the only difference. But for that I didn't have to travel. I think I just mailed my stuff and then
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know how it is now, but
Mm-hmm. Because
back
like the
then
fingerprints and stuff like that. That's
yeah, yeah,
mm,
I don't remember having to travel to do any of that, and, like,
mm-hmm.
everyone else who went to school with me too, like, their process was pretty
Pretty
easy too
easy.
that we got through, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, no, so that's school. You got into school, you figured that out on your own. You had help from the administrative staff at school, and then you had your little support group.
Mhm.
No, school is finished. Now, there's one question that I think that a lot of people probably have in their mind. Usually, you get a work permit of the time that you studied for, but I
Yes.
believe it's up to a maximum of 3 years. That's it. So even though you went to school for 4 years, your work
Mhm.
permit was 3 years, right?
That's correct, yes.
Confirming. Perfect. So you finish school, you apply for your postgraduate work permit, which you probably did on your own as well, it sounds.
So everything so my visa so Canada is different in that your permits and visas are only to the length of, either your passport or your
Mm-hmm.
program.
Mm-hmm.
So for my visa in particular, I had to renew my visa at least twice while I was there just because
Right, four
of
years. Yes.
yeah, because of that whole passport, the time frame of the study, everything.
Mm-hmm.
The person who I told you came, who was from Belize, who was working at the school. At
Right.
the time, she was studying to get herself certified to be an immigration consultant.
Okay.
So she kind of was able to
Newish.
give
She
me
knew stuff.
some,
Okay.
yeah, so helping me with those process. So every time what I would do is I kind of did it on my own. Then I got her to like look it over and kind of help me if anything I have missing. So when it came time for the postgraduate work permit, I was working at the time, so I was able to like hire her because at the time she was like fully licensed now. So
Okay, so you got an immigration consultant there.
yeah, I think I did the bulk of the work, but then
That
I
she
made sure to
reviewed.
get her to just review it for me, and
Mm-hmm.
I paid a little fee for that work,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was pretty much it. Because it's good to have somebody just look
Second
over.
eyes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Avoid rejection.
Yeah.
People
So
avoid.
the point is, I never do anything on my own because I not like rejection and
Yeah.
waste money. So that
Power
is
to the
the
people.
key. When in doubt, ask one, two,
Exactly.
three, four. Somebody has to know, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yes, exactly. And like you said, it's going to save you money, save your time, save your stress to just get help, especially if you're uncertain. Okay.
Mhm.
So now you got your postgraduate work permit, and this is where you say, I'm moving to Toronto. Do you had family in Toronto?
No, my dear,
So
me
you one
one,
and God. So it's not,
me
never mind
one.
that you move from this country to that country to this country to that country. You say you want something new, even though you are already like newish over there.
Mhm.
But okay, you're moving to Toronto. It's newer,
Yeah.
hipper. So you moved here and then now you have to find a job. Like, what was that like for you?
So what I did was from the time I graduated or was on my way to graduate, I started applying for jobs
Good.
in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And so I already knew because of the degree that I did, it wouldn't relate to any of the jobs I was applying for unless I was trying to be like a lab assistant or something. And I didn't want to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for anything that was customer service related, anything
Okay.
that had to do with nonprofit work. Because at the time when I was at school, I was an RA, so resident assistant for anybody who wants to know what that is. And I also was Rotaract president at my school. So I kind of just looked at transferable skills and seeing what jobs were like, and I got a job offer while I was in Newfoundland.
Oh,
So
cool.
what helped me though is that I was working a summer job where they kind of convert our schools into like a little hotel during
Okay.
the summer because
Mm-hmm.
kids aren't there, students aren't there or anything, so it kind of get transformed. People can rent out the what they call chalets or the dorms. They have a
Mhm.
lot of conferences, so I was doing like hospitality related work, so answering phone call, booking people,
Mhm.
fixing up beds, tearing out
Mhm.
sheets and washing them. So
Mhm.
that gave me a little bit of buffer in saving up for the move, but at the same time applying for those jobs before I made that jump. But I made sure the first thing I had was somewhere to stay,
Of
and then
course.
I said I would figure out the working part if the time came and I didn't get a job.
Mhm.
September 1st, I didn't know something I got up on the plane. That's all I didn't know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this in the last episode about networking, and then I had a good point to make about networking because like I feel like it's so easy, guys, to come here as immigrants and to stick with the people that you know, like you said, or your friends that you know, like you said, and you stay in your own little bubble and you don't grow. How
Mhm.
I met Maggie is at a networking event. You don't think so? We
Literally.
know each other from a long time, though. We met at a networking event that somebody invited me to. I went. It was on a Sunday, right?
Sunday of all days too,
Sunday,
right?
good Sunday, right? So we went to this networking event and you just talk to people, right? And of course, probably it was a lot of Black people. So it's not necessarily because she's the only Black person there. There was a bunch of Black people there, but we went around the room. They had a cool, like, I think it was like bingo, network
Yeah,
bingo
like
kind of a thing,
icebreaker and
like an
bingo game.
icebreaker. And we,
Mhm.
we spoke and then we connected on Instagram, and here we are, right? And a lot of things can come from just starting having a conversation, even if you're like introverted. Then just talk to
Yep.
one person. Just make an effort to talk to just one. Maybe don't need to talk to everybody in the room. One person. Networking. Did any networking efforts help you to get the job, or was it mostly just applying online?
So funny enough, the church that I was going to at the time, I didn't know this, but the persons who were like my grandparents, I would say like my Newfoundland grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
their daughter was the one hiring for the job. And when it was time to get recommendations, it was like the church folks who were like, yeah, like she would be perfect for it. But I didn't know they were saying these things. It was just
Right.
through observing based on the job requirement. They were
Mm-hmm.
looking at all these things I did. So when I was going to school there, I invited one person to church with me one time, and then before we knew it, we had like a bunch of other students coming to church because the church was like, "Oh wait, we can just come pick you guys up and bring
Mm-hmm.
y'all."
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of started them getting a bunch of university kids to come to the school. So I think they looked at things like that, and when it was
Mm-hmm.
time for a referral, it was like pretty
Good.
easy to recommend. And when I looked at the job too, like it was an organization that I already had some ties with and
Mm.
whatever, but also looking at what the requirements were, I don't know anybody who doesn't know how it works would be able to handle what I was thrown into that
Yeah.
first year. Because trust me, that was another thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it just made me see that every experience I've encountered, it prepared me
Of
for
course.
that,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I was moving here on my own. So
Yeah.
it just helped to
Mm-hmm.
mold me for the opportunity. Yeah. But yeah,
Good.
networking,
Mm-hmm.
very important, and use
Very.
skills that you have
Mm-hmm.
already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you never know who's watching.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think that the word networking is tied to business. It's businessy, but network is your
Yeah.
church network, right?
Just talk to
You just talk
people.
to people. Just talk to
Yeah.
people. You don't need to be at a networking event. You can go somewhere and see somebody, but networking events are, easier because that's the whole
Important.
point. But
Yeah.
go to church, find a local community, all of that stuff. Cool. So now you're on a postgraduate work permit. Time is ticking. You need to get permanent residence. What
Yes.
was that? Was it express entry? Was it something else? Were you running short on time? Like I was up by the bullet. I went to school for 1 year, got a 1 year work permit, and I had
Yeah.
only enough time to just be here. I submitted applications 6 days before expiration and all kind of craziness. Was your
Yeah.
story as crazy, or was it just like a seamless? You had a 3 year permit, sort of.
Yeah, it wasn't too crazy for me because of that 3-year work permit. But I will say that you see, when you don't have mommy and daddy around anymore to be on your back about things, you have to
Oh.
adult.
Mm-hmm.
So remembering those
Adulting
important
101.
timelines. Yeah, man. So it's very easy to be working and you're caught up in everything you're doing and you're
Mm-hmm.
not realizing, boy, 1 year gone, boy, 2 year gone. So you get me? So I was already asking the questions from that same person I told you about. I was talking to them at the time, making them know, okay, here's how long I've been in and they were also giving me advice. So even when I felt fed up at one point and I was ready to like leave the job, they're like, you know what, you're this close to that 1 year mark. That's like one of the requirements
Of
needed
course.
for the express entry that you would be applying through. So it's like all of that. It's really good to speak to people who have experience because then they can guide you. Because if I was impulsive and just got up and quit, like dog would have near my supper. That's all
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think yes. So it wasn't hectic because I was on the ball and I knew it was something that was at the back of my head that I thought about. Because I'm like, I can't go through all of this
Mm-hmm.
and not. That was like the end point for me. That needs to be solidified because I was looking at all the opportunities that I wanted to do. Like at the time, I was working, but then I started a side gig. When I'm talking about looking for funding for my business and things like that, it's always looking at eligibility. I always
Of
say
course.
Canadian citizen, permanent resident.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if
Mm-hmm.
you're not any of those,
Mm.
that's not the opportunity for you. So yeah, that one for sure. I used the help, total help of the immigration consultant, and it was a good thing I did because it was during the height of
Okay.
when the pandemic hit. So that helped me with a lot of the stress that people would usually encounter.
Right. So ultimately, it was through express entry,
Mhm.
Canadian experience class, as far as you know.
Yes,
So you
yes.
just
You
got
know
the
the one with
points.
the knock, yeah, with the
Yeah.
points. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So boom. And you became a permanent resident. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you're here now, you're a permanent resident. She did heavily mention quite a bit, just using help where you don't feel comfortable, right? And we have our partnering immigration consultant, Maggie Immigration Consulting, who can take care of that. Link in the bio. I'll kind of link in the description below. Everywhere where you are, there's a link to get connected with our immigration consultant, and you can get a discount code, having heard it from me. All right. So what advice do you have for international students? I mean, you did give really good nuggets anyway. So I guess
Okay.
you guys are good, right? But like if you could kind of just sum up like what advice would you give to international students to help them to be successful in, transitioning into the job world, and then of course
Mhm.
going into permanent residency, because I think it's getting a little bit tight right now. They
Yes,
made
for
some
sure.
they made some updates recently, and based on the quotas for the year and the number of immigration, like international students about,
Mm,
it don't add up.
it
I
don't
mean,
add up.
that's not a hurdle that you had to face necessarily, but what kind of advice
Yeah.
would you give to international students to help them to succeed throughout their immigration journey, and then like you said, not to get stressed out over these things?
So at your university, look out for those little groups that they have because sometimes they have opportunities available for you. So like mentorship programs, and they're like specific to the program that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, people aren't really waiting until they graduate to build up their career or to get experience.
Yeah.
People are actually being hired before they graduate. So don't wait until they're graduating to build up that corporate or professional portfolio. Look,
Mm-hmm.
use whatever skills you have. If
Mm-hmm.
somebody isn't going to give you the opportunity, find those opportunities for yourself. This is
Yeah.
something I can attest to having to
Mm-hmm.
do as someone who switched careers and
Mm-hmm.
doors were closing in my face. But I say, you know what? All right, nobody want open the door for me. I
I
won't
make
bust
my
down
own
doors.
door.
Okay. So it's like little things like that. I think it's getting more and more competitive. So please do not be naive into
Mm-hmm.
thinking that you're the best of the best
Mm-hmm.
because there will always be someone else who's a bit more proactive. So
Mm-hmm.
look for those people, ask them questions,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not abandoning friends, but you're making sure that you're not just sticking to your group of people.
Yes.
Broaden your horizons in
Mm-hmm.
that way so that when the time comes, it's smoother. And, Christina already mentioned a resource for you for immigration purposes. It is good if you have a good reputation. I know the hardest thing for people is the immigration fees. Personally, I just had a great relationship with my consultant that they were happy enough to, give me a payment plan. And because I'm not like all people,
Okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
was diligent with this is what we agreed upon. No matter
Mm-hmm.
what's going on with my personal life, they got their money. So
Yeah.
it's good to have good character. People will
Mm-hmm.
continue to want to work and help you. Don't allow
those things and not being credible to block your blessings. All
Yes.
right, because that is a thing people talk about a lot. The scammers. Don't be one.
Amen. That's a good point. Really good point to end on right there. So, because we're going to shift over into the next episode. If it's already out, lucky you, you can binge watch it. If not, you have to wait for the next episode of The Flash. Maggie is going to tell us now. So she's in the entrepreneurship world, the business world. Like she said, at some point she started a side hustle, which I think in this economy right now is very, very, very important. I think that we are trying to survive in an economy on an old school system that doesn't necessarily work anymore. Okay. So I think that she has super duper nuggets to share with us with regards to entrepreneurship and side hustles. So stay tuned and make sure that you're watching this episode. Catch up on the first episode where we heard the beginning of Maggie's story and how she got here. And we will see you in the next video. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff, and watch the next video.